Let's talk about Carlos Prates. He's one of the most electric, most controversial, and, let's be honest, one of the most effective new stars in the UFC. Today, we're going to break down the story of a fighter who does things his own way, whose path to the top has been anything but a straight line.
And you know what? Let's just start with his own words, because this really sets the stage for the guy they call the Nightmare. This isn't your typical hero's journey. Nope. This is about a man who operates by a very different code. So to really get who Carlos Prates is, you have to wrap your head around this central paradox. He is an absolutely elite, world-class athlete who, on the surface, seems to be breaking every single rule in the athlete's handbook.
As of early 2026, he is the number 5 ranked welterweight on the planet. And remember, we're talking about the UFC's welterweight division here. This is a shark tank, just absolutely stacked with killers.
But here's the thing that's so fascinating. It's not just his rank, it's how he got there. He's living a life that just seems totally at odds with what we expect from a top-tier professional athlete. And you know what? He could not care less what you think about it. So to understand him, you gotta go back. His story didn't start in some high-tech performance center. Nah, it started on the streets of Taubaté, Brazil, where things could have gone very, very differently for him.
Prates grew up seeing what he calls a lot of bad things. He admits he was looking up to the wrong people, making bad choices, and was headed down a really dangerous road. Some of his friends, they ended up choosing a life of crime. But then, his mom stepped in.
And this, right here, was the turning point. At just 15 years old, his mother gave him a lifeline. She took him to a Muay Thai gym, not just to learn how to fight, but to find some discipline, to find a way out.
But to truly become the Nightmare, he had to leave home and throw himself into one of the most grueling, unforgiving fighting environments you can possibly imagine.
He moved to Thailand, the home of Muay Thai, and had over 100 professional fights. Seriously, just let that number sink in. 103. Most MMA fighters don't even have 30 fights in their whole career. This experience just forged him into something different.
And this quote, this gets right to the heart of it. He wasn't fighting for a legacy or a shiny belt. He was fighting to survive, to pay his bills. Fighting when he was sick, when he was injured, sometimes jumping in the ring 3 times in 4 days, all because rent was due.
That's why he's so calm, so ice-cold under the bright lights of the UFC. I mean, after you fought for your dinner money in some sweltering stadium in Thailand, a main event in Las Vegas, that doesn't feel like pressure. That feels like a vacation.
Now you'd think with 100-plus Muay Thai fights, his jump to pro MMA would be a cakewalk, right? That he'd just be an instant success. Well, it was actually the complete opposite. Seriously, look at this comparison. His first 9 fights, he had a record of 5-4. I mean, that's totally average. It is a night and day difference from the absolute wrecking machine we see today.
So what was the deal? Well, it really came down to a couple of things. He still lacked some of that championship-level discipline in his training, and he was fighting in the wrong weight classes. Draining himself to make featherweight and lightweight just wasn't right for his big frame.
But then, after all those years of grinding, of sharpening his tools, and finally finding his focus, everything just clicked, and he was ready for the biggest stage in combat sports.
His arrival in the UFC wasn't just an arrival, it was a hostile takeover. This timeline shows a relentless storm of knockouts. He just walked through guy after guy, each one tougher than the last, all the way up to finishing a former world champion.
And check this out, it's just perfect. 6 UFC wins, 6 knockouts, and for every single one of those spectacular finishes, he got a $50,000 Performance of the Night bonus. He's not just winning, he's putting on a show that makes him rich.
So all this success, all this money, you'd think it might have changed him, right? Softened him up a bit? Nope. If anything, it's just given him a bigger microphone to be himself.
His stats tell you everything you need to know. A ridiculous 78% of his wins have come by knockout. He's not in there to play games or win on points. He is a finisher, and he is always looking to turn the lights out. And that nickname, the Nightmare, it's not just some cool-sounding marketing thing. It was real. Back in Brazil, promoters literally said it was a nightmare trying to find anyone who was actually willing to sign a contract to fight him.
And this, right here, is the core of his public persona. He completely rejects the whole idea that he should be a role model. He basically says, that's your job as a parent, not mine. He's going to live his life, and he expects you to be responsible for your own.
So at the end of the day, Carlos Prates is a product of his struggle. He's this world-class talent who was forged in the fire of just trying to get by, and he absolutely refuses to be anyone but himself. Which kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. In this world of polished, media-trained athletes, is this raw, unapologetic anti-hero exactly what a sport like fighting really needs?